On Mother's Day, I was shocked when my daughter-in-law exposed me in front of 100 guests. What had begun as the annual gathering at my suburban Ohio home quickly morphed into a whirlwind of chaos. As I stood there, smoothing my floral apron, a symbol of my years in this role, darkened thoughts crept into my mind. Would Sarah's privileged background overshadow the warmth I poured into this day? The culmination of years of sweat and worry to create a home we could be proud of? The chatter around me was vibrant, laughter spilling from lips like fresh lemonade on a hot day. But beneath my smile, anxiety gnawed persistently. My son Jake's pride in marrying such an exquisite woman occasionally tormented me with feelings of inadequacy. I admired Sarah's charm. It laid bare a world where my upbringing had been steeped in grit, not grace. Would she look at my lovingly prepared dishes and see only a half-hearted effort? My stomach twisted as the aromas wafted through our home, which was designed to welcome and embrace, not to compete. Suddenly, amidst the din, I noticed Sarah rising. Her eyes sparkled, and as she discarded her napkin with theatrical flair, the room's buzz dulled to silence. I felt my heart race, a beast thrumming within me. Just then, she took a deep breath, ready to unveil a secret that would shatter this day. A family inheritance linked to my late mother, an artist whose work never saw the acclaim it deserved. My pulse quickened, panic rising. Who would recognize my mother as anyone beyond the humble woman she was? "Did you know," Sarah said, her voice dipping low to draw us all in, "that Mary's mother had a wealth of artistry unseen by the world? A legacy buried under layers of struggle." Gasps echoed throughout the room, and as my heart dropped, I was swept into a cacophony of conflicting emotions. Years of working late at the diner, undercooked dreams of pursuing painting, it all crashed into focus. My mother, an unseen talent, and here I stood, already stumbling under the weight of convention. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The room was alive now, charged with energy as discussions erupted. Voices collided, family loyalties twisted into a tense debate. Who deserved recognition, the artist or those who merely inherited privilege? I stood in the midst of it all, feeling the weight of my life's work unraveling, a tapestry woven from sacrifice and fight, now frayed by a revelation that cut to my core. The flood of accusations felt like an avalanche bearing down on my heart. Shame twisted within me. Was I simply my mother's shadows, stapled to a narrative of endurance in a space I had worked hard to create? Sarah's intentions, though perhaps innocent, clawed at my identity. What if my art, my voice, remained unacknowledged, eclipsed by her vibrant charm? The conversation surged, a tidal wave against the shore of my resolve. Caught between defending my history and embracing my mother's hidden legacy, I could feel anger and determination coiling within my chest. The dichotomy of privilege and merit still battling fiercely inside me, raw emotions surged to the surface. I clenched my fists, muscles tense, questioning my role in this twisted tableau of recognition. What would I do next? Would I finally stand up for my truth? The air buzzed with anticipation as all eyes focused on me, and I felt the room hold its breath, a moment of tension that could ignite either reconciliation or rift. As I fought back the swell of emotions, the spotlight that turned my world upside down felt blinding. This was no longer an ordinary family gathering. It had morphed into a battleground for recognition, a contest of worth. Sarah, standing poised, was at the center of it, while I wrestled with the shadows of my upbringing and the legacy I had yet to claim. I glanced at Jake, seeking solace in his familiar gaze. Yet what I saw was a mask of confusion and concern. His love for Sarah shimmered with pride. But did it come at the cost of dismissing my history? I felt an unnameable weight pressing down, a blend of maternal instinct and the drive to take ownership of my truth. "Okay," I breathed, a whisper that sparked a flicker of conviction within me. The tension in the room crackled, and I knew that my response could either solidify my silence or awaken my voice. As I took a tentative step forward, the air shifted again. The guests leaned in, curious about my next move. "Did you all know," I began, my voice wavering but increasingly clear, "that my mother spent years painting her heart out, buried under the weight of poverty and an oppressive expectation to conform? At countless garage sales, I watched her put her art aside for our survival, all while pouring her soul into canvas after canvas." A murmur rippled through the crowd as I felt the spirits of my past urging me on. Her art was never just for accolades, but a testament to resilience. So while Sarah may speak of a hidden legacy, it's important to acknowledge that it comes from a very real story, a story I am proud to be a part of, whether or not it garners applause. The weight in my chest lightened as freedom tinged my words. Still, I could feel the tension spiral around me, an uncertainty punctuated by gasps and nervous laughter. Would they hear my voice? Or would they dismiss me as a mere echo of my mother, a footnote against the bright tapestry of Sarah's inherited charm? Then Sarah interjected, perhaps sensing the shift in the atmosphere, her confidence acknowledged but not unchallenged. "Mary, no one is disputing that. But your mother's struggles don't diminish the opportunity for you to embrace and expand upon her legacy." Her words stung. Was she genuinely trying to bridge the gap, or was this an attempt to quiet the storm? I had already lived in the shadow of familial expectations. No longer did I want to navigate through my mother's dreams or her failures. With a renewed surge of determination, I straightened my spine, letting my fists unclench. "You're right. It's not just about inheritance. It's about what I choose to do with that legacy moving forward." Excitement wove through me. An inkling of a path began to emerge from the chaos. Amid the swirling emotions, a personal project flickered in my mind, an undiscovered canvas waiting for my hands. I will honor my mother's artistry, not as a comparison to anyone else's talent. It will be my own. The room quieted, my declaration resonating. It wasn't merely a statement. It began to morph into a decision, a commitment to craft my path, intertwining familial legacies while giving birth to my own voice. The discussion ebbed, a gentle lull settling around the remnants of chaos. Conversations regarding my mother's work now sounded less like a competition and more like a celebration of understanding and connection. But as I took this step forward, something stirred within. Could this newfound determination fuel other facets of my life? With a heart racing not just from fear but from a burgeoning sense of possibility, I realized the other pieces of my identity awaited exploration. As I selected a triumphant smile among the crowd, I suddenly sensed both a challenge and an opportunity looming ahead. No longer bound to old narratives, a new chapter beckoned. As I mulled over this revelation, another wave of emotion crashed over me. I wasn't just stepping into a legacy, I was preparing to redefine it. The time had come to face the pulse of untapped potential that had long lurked in the shadows of acceptance. What might my journey look like beyond this chaotic day? How would I face the unknowns, now that I had unleashed my voice for the first time? The questions hung in the air, nursery of possibility and tension, inviting me forward into the next uncertain phase of my life. The evening unfolded like a delicate petal, the initial shock still rippling through the air. As conversations resumed, a different atmosphere enveloped the gathering. It was as though my declaration had carved a new space, not just for me, but for others who felt unseen. I noticed Sarah chatting with a few family members, her charisma effortlessly drawing them in. I could hear their laughter, but the sound now felt distant, almost like echoes from another room. I mulled over my next steps, straddling a delicate balance between nurturing my own aspirations and understanding the complexities of family dynamics. An unfamiliar thrill danced in my chest, the prospect of change. I could reshape my world, redefine the narrative that too long twisted around my identity. I glanced around the room, noting guests engaged in conversation about my mother's work, their words now reflecting admiration rather than mere acknowledgement. In that moment, I realized the power of vulnerability. My voice had shifted the narrative, even if just slightly. That sense of liberation triggered deeper questions. What form would my journey take now? I had spent years supporting others, Jake, my children, and even Sarah. The thought of diving into my own ambitions felt both exhilarating and terrifying. As I wandered through the gathering, the remnants of insecurity still nipped at my heels. Who would I be without the shadow of my mother's artistry looming over me? I stepped away from the din, seeking solitude in the quiet kitchen. The familiar scent of spices simmering on the stove calmed me. Comfort food, something that had always been a part of our family gatherings. Leaning against the counter, I fought against the creeping doubts. I couldn't just define myself by my mother's legacy. It was time to understand what creativity meant to me personally. An unexpected thought sparked. Perhaps I could create a project that melded our art, my mother's touching stories with my modern perspective. I envisioned a gallery event dedicated to her work, but infused with pieces of my own. I had never hosted an event, but now the idea felt like a seed nestled in fertile ground. As I grabbed a glass of water, I noticed a sketch pad tucked away on the kitchen table, remnants of my children's artwork spilling across the pages. Inspiration struck me. This simple thing, a blend of innocence and creativity, had the power to ignite my own dormant skills. I had once enjoyed painting, often finding solace in colors and patterns. Could I? No, I must. I could experiment again, unfurling my creativity without restraint. The image of a unique event began solidifying, celebrating our family's history, yet giving space to my own evolution. The idea wasn't just about hosting. It represented a reclamation of my identity, a glimpse into my soul's radiance. Mary? Jake's voice sliced through my contemplation, pulling me from reverie. He stood in the doorway, concern etched across his features. You okay? You seemed a bit distant just now. I'm fine, I replied, the lie slipping from my lips. I knew if I let him peer too deeply, he'd detect the swirling fears lurking beneath my calm facade. I just had some thoughts on what we could do, about the art, about celebrating my mom's legacy. And mine too. Jake raised an eyebrow, intrigued but cautious. You mean like a gallery show? Yes, but different, I clarified, excitement bubbling over. A fusion of her past and my new vision. A collection that embodies both the weight of history and the vibrance of fresh perspective. His smile grew as he considered my words. That sounds incredible. You should absolutely go for it. The affirmation lingered in the air, warming my spirit. Yet another realization struck. While the idea stirred within me, I would need to face practical challenges. Planning meant reaching out to my family, including Sarah, about the participation in this project. Would they support a concept diverging from their vision of celebrating her legacy? What was it you said earlier? He asked, sensing the hesitation flickering in my gaze. You need to choose with intention. The question lingered, reframing everything. Creating this project would demand courage, an ongoing challenge against latent insecurities and familial expectations. As I prepared to respond, I felt an electric hesitation coursing through me. A part of me was afraid of their judgment, but another part craved the challenge. This was my chance. In that moment of clarity, I sensed what this would demand of me. Not just a celebration of legacy, but of assertive growth. How would my family react to this bold assertion of self amidst their entrenched narratives? The path ahead shimmered with uncertainty, beckoning me toward new territories. I took a deep breath, standing teetering on the edge of unfamiliarity. But with a renewed commitment to my journey, the question stirred within. Was I truly ready to confront my family about the risks and rewards of stepping into my own light? The energy in the kitchen shifted subtly as I turned my attention back to Jake. His presence provided a grounding force amidst my whirlwind of thoughts. Yet, I couldn't ignore the apprehension that had taken root. My mind whirred with potential obstacles. What if my family dismissed my vision? Did I even have the authority to reshape the narrative surrounding my mother's legacy? Jake, My voice trembled slightly as I considered the weight of my next words. What if they don't see it the same way? What if they see my ideas as trivial? He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine. Mary, you're not trivial. You're giving voice to your own truth. That's powerful. If you believe in this, others will too. But remember, you don't have to take on their reactions alone. His encouragement sparked a fleeting sense of confidence, but the cold tendrils of doubt still coiled around my heart. The specter of my family's expectations loomed large, casting shadows over my ambition. They had always viewed my mother's work as untouchable, a sacred trust. How could I bring my own creations into that space without inciting conflict? As the party continued in the other room, laughter and chatter faded into the background, replaced by the daunting silence of my internal struggle. I knew I needed to clarify my intentions and set boundaries for how my art would contribute to the family narrative. I was not merely an extension of my mother's legacy. I would forge my own path. The thought of a family meeting surfaced like a lifeline. It would require courage and a clear vision, but it could also open doors that had long been closed. I envisioned a small gathering where I could present my ideas openly. What if I brought everyone together? A family meeting where I could share my vision and invite their collaboration. A family meeting could be a great start, Jake nodded, his enthusiasm palpable. Engage them with what excites you. Show them how your vision can honor what came before, yet breathe new life into it. His optimism momentarily dispelled my apprehension, though I understood the delicate nature of this undertaking. A family meeting had the potential to amplify support, yet it could also lead to contention if they couldn't embrace my need for artistic independence. The stakes had never felt higher. The tentacles of self-doubt tightened, whispering taunts that I wasn't ready for such a confrontation. But what if they reject my ideas entirely? What if I end up feeling crushed or inadequate? Then you adjust, he replied firmly, his reassurance an anchor against the storm of uncertainty. You're evolving, and so is the art around you. Just like the world isn't static, neither are the family dynamics. Sometimes progress means facing hard truths. There it was again, the push to assert my identity bravely, to step into my truth despite the fear. It crystallized within me. This project was not merely a gallery show, but a catalyst for necessary dialogue. My family's perception could evolve just as I was beginning to do. I took a deep breath, envisioning how I'd articulate my thoughts. Reaching out to them would require careful navigation, but I had to try. I had the potential to redefine my role, and with every step taken, I could carve out a space for my creativity to flourish alongside my mother's legacy. As my resolve solidified, the initial thrill from earlier returned, mixed now with urgency. I felt ready to challenge the intricacies within my family. But a new question loomed larger than before, one that brought a flutter of fear into my chest. Would I have the strength to withstand potential confrontation, to advocate fiercely for my artistry when it mattered most? I turned to Jake, aware that the conversation we'd just had was a pivotal moment, but it was merely the beginning. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, ready to share them all. Jake, what if my mother resists the very idea of change? A silence fell between us as the gravity of my concern settled in. The answer he might provide could change everything. Would this be an opportunity for growth or a plunge into unfamiliar depths? The air was thick with anticipation as Mary stepped into the living room, an informal gathering of family smattered with laughter and warmth. Seats nestled around an old coffee table, remnants of hors d'oeuvres scattered about, a stage set for the pivotal moment she had envisioned. Despite the cozy ambiance, her heart raced, a persistent melody of doubt strumming in her chest. "Maybe I should wait," she whispered to herself, the thought flitting through her mind like the flutter of a moth against a flame. It felt easier to retreat than to leap forward into the unknown. But the image of her mother loomed, a constant reminder of expectations forged in love and prestige. Taking a deep breath, she glanced at Jake, who lingered by the refreshment table, a reassuring smile on his face. He had given her the push to envision this moment, yet standing before her family, the enormity of her potential confrontation loomed larger than any brushstroke or canvas she had ever faced. Casting a discerning eye over her relatives, she noted the subtle cues. They were all familiar with the artwork that adorned their walls, a legacy of tradition that shaped their bonds. Yet her heart was not boxed into that legacy. It yearned to express something new, something untamed. She had to communicate that today. "Hey everyone," she began, her voice gaining strength as she captured their attention. "I wanted to gather us all today to share some ideas I've been developing around Mom's legacy." The room stilled, a hush enveloping the merry chatter, her words crystallizing into the air like smoke from a candlelit flame. At first, she was met with puzzled expressions. A couple of her cousins exchanged glances, curiosity peeking through their initial bewilderment. Could they grasp the depth of her aspirations? Would they empathize with the tensions that had pulled at her heartstrings, inviting her to forge a new artistic identity? "Well, Mary," her father interjected, his tone inadvertently cautious. "What do you mean? You want to change what your mother created?" The question hung heavy in the air, the unspoken weight of skepticism lodged firmly in the room. Taking his words in stride, she steadied herself. "Not change, Dad. Honoring her through honoring myself." The carefully chosen words rolled off her tongue, edged with sincerity, but dipped in the bitter taste of resistance. She needed them to see the intricacies, to realize that her vision wasn't a betrayal, but a metamorphosis. The assertion felt almost audacious, a declaration of independence wrapped in vulnerability. "How do you plan to do that?" her uncle chimed in, folding his arms with an air of protective skepticism. "A challenge," she noted, a test of her resolve. Gathering her thoughts, she painted a portrait of her vision, describing how her art could evoke conversations of belonging and hope, blending legacy and innovation. With every phrase, she dismantled the walls she felt were closing in. The more she spoke, the more her confidence unfurled, a mere seed sprouting within her, rooted in her determination. As the conversation flowed, she could sense the currents changing. Curiosity began to break through the initial skepticism, but a familiar voice still spoke doubt, echoing in her mind. The deeper connection to tradition loomed threateningly, as if it had teeth poised to bite back at her aspirations. Through the clamor of camaraderie, her mother's shadow loomed, still silent and watchful. The confrontation that had materialized within her family struck at a vital nerve, and with it, so did her fear. Would her mother feel shoved aside, even indirectly? Would she view Mary's need for transformation as an affront? "Mary!" The gentle words of Jake found her ears, grounding her. His supportive presence reminded her of the necessity of courage, not just for herself, but for her family too. They needed to grow alongside her, to embrace the evolution of art and family dynamics. But then she faced a daunting realization. If her family struggled to fully grasp her perspective, would her voice ever echo loudly enough to challenge her mother's legacy? The stakes twisted sharply. Could her relationship with her mother crumble beneath this new strain, or could it illuminate a shared pathway together? Realizing she stood at the precipice of a critical shift, she took a breath, prepared to discuss the outcomes predicated on respect, and most importantly, love. As she opened her mouth to continue, the room's energy shifted once more. Eyes on her, uncertainty palpably intertwined with anticipation. "Mom," she began, feeling the tremor of intimacy fracture the weight of expectation. "How would you feel about exploring this together?" At that pivotal moment, the fray of emotions swirled around her, igniting a path yet unexplored. Would this invite resolution or raise the stakes even higher in the ongoing saga of their family legacy's evolution? The moment hung in the air, charged with potential, as Mary waited for her mother's response. For the first time, she allowed herself to envision a possibility, building a bridge between their generational divide. Doubt still gnawed at her, but was it too late for reconciliation or just beginning? Her mother shifted ever so slightly, peering at Mary with a mix of curiosity and trepidation, her face a canvas of emotions. "Exploring it together?" her mother finally replied, each word tentative yet layered with unspoken history. "What do you mean?" Mary's heart pounded in her chest. Clarity was crucial now. "I want to create a series that combines your techniques with my style. I see so many stories rooted in our family, stories that deserve freshness, a new layer of perspective." The slight frown on her mother's face deepened, creating a strain of silence. "So you want to take what I've worked my whole life on and blend it?" "It's not about taking. It's about evolving, Mom. Your work is part of me, but I need to find my voice within it." The room was still, tension thickening like the shifting weather outside, echoes of family laughter forgotten in the vulnerable moment. As she searched her mother's eyes, she yearned to break through the walls of the past, to reignite the warmth that once bound them. Yet with every passing second, doubts bubbled anew. Perhaps she had underestimated her mother's attachment to her legacy. "You think it's easy to just shift what I've built?" Her mother's voice carried a sharp edge now, layers of suppressed emotion flaring to the surface. "I was taught that greatness comes from a solid foundation, Mary, not by simply weaving in random threads." The challenge felt like a lead weight in her stomach. Was the very foundation of her mother's legacy the limitation Mary sought to escape? Yet, amidst the tension, sparks of resolve ignited within her. "Mom, we can't stay tethered to gaudy replicas of the past forever. We owe it to ourselves to reshape our narrative." Her mother's expression wavered momentarily, caught between anger and contemplation. Mary had lighted a match in a room full of kindling, but the fire could either illuminate their path forward or consume them entirely. "You're right about one thing," her mother sighed, her voice softening yet resolute. "Changing anything is a risk, but you must know that it can't come at the expense of what we've already established." For the first time, Mary could see the flicker of vulnerability in her mother. This was not merely a clash of ideologies, but a conversation fueled by fear, the fear of being forgotten, of legacy eroded. "I'm not trying to erase you, Mom," Mary pressed, her conviction rising. "But I don't want to hide behind your shadows either. Can't you see? This is my endeavor to merge our paths, not sever them." The silence deepened again, reverberating with the past's weight. Just then, an elder relative cleared their throat, trying to interject with a comment, but Mary busily focused on the breakthrough brewing before her. "We can build something transcendent," she urged on, desperation edging her tone. "Imagine the conversations we could start. Art is about connecting. Isn't that what you always taught me?" As the words unfolded, Mary caught glimpses of flickering emotions across her family's faces. Perhaps this was the misconception she had feared all along. Not only was her art an extension of herself, but it served as a bridge to understanding her mother's legacy rather than dismissing it. But from the corner of her eye, she noticed Jake, shifting with an unease that reflected further complicity in their familial bonds. He had always encouraged her aspirations, but this was not just an abstract notion. It was a lived reality that challenged established traditions deeply rooted in familial pride. "Mom," she pressed, aiming to bring her back to the forefront. "What if this collaboration could also help us reconcile our differences? Could we not create a space where both legacies flourish?" A hesitant smile began to form on her mother's lips, yet it felt tentative, as if a trembling bridge was still under construction. Would her mother embrace this opportunity, or would the fear of losing control over her legacy rule the day? As uncertainty flickered, a new thought emerged from the depths of Mary's mind. Was it possible that their journey together could also rescue her mother from the chains of her own rigid legacy? In that charged atmosphere, Mary understood one fact: things would never be the same. The stakes had shifted, entwining them in a complex dance of aspiration and resistance. Would her mother take the leap toward collaboration, or would doubt and tradition keep them apart? The question reverberated in Mary's mind, and she braced for the answer that could redefine everything. Mary stood at a crossroads, her thoughts racing as her mother's tentative smile lingered in the air. Each heartbeat echoed the weight of their conversation, a pivotal moment that could either sever or strengthen their ties. She could see the shifting landscape of her mother's emotions, but uncertainty clung to her like a heavy fog. Would this be the beginning of their collaboration, or a slip back into familiar estrangement? The silence that followed felt oppressive. She glanced at Jake, his brow furrowed, tension radiating from him in waves. It reminded her of the delicate balance between challenge and support, how quickly encouragement could turn into quiet disapproval. If she hoped to convince her mother, she had to stand firm, yet she felt exposed, as if every layer of her resolve was pinned against the scrutiny of family expectations. "Mom," she began again, her voice stronger this time, laced with determination. "This isn't just a project. It's about understanding each other better. We're both artists, both storytellers. Can't we share our narratives instead of barricading ourselves behind them?" A flicker of surprise crossed her mother's face. It was there, the briefest flash of intrigue. Mary took a step closer, as if the distance between them could be breached physically as well as emotionally. "Think about it. Your techniques have so much to offer, and I believe my touch could breathe new life into what you've created. People want to see art evolve. They want to feel challenged." For the first time, Mary sensed a shift in her mother's posture, a slight softening in her eyes. But with hope came hesitation. "And if it fails? If your vision ends up overshadowing mine?" Each apprehension voiced created another wall, yet Mary couldn't afford to falter. "What if it doesn't? What if we learn from each other?" The silence held them captive again, but something had changed, an open door that had not previously been there. Yet as Mary explored this fragile territory of shared vulnerability, she grappled with her own fears. What if the venture turned into a painful reminder of their differences? What if her mother rejected the very essence that made Mary who she was? The stakes weren't just personal. They were a test of legacy, of family pride. "I've wrestled with self-doubt more than you know," Mary confessed, her vulnerability now a daring weapon. "I'm terrified of erasing our history, but I also know I have to carve my own path." The emotional landscape began to shift again, feelers of her mother's buried worries swirling to the surface. "You think I haven't felt the same? Every time I see your work, I wonder if I've held you back or pushed you away." The raw honesty broke through the tension like a dawn after a long, dark night. Mary felt her heart swell with something she hadn't expected: hope and a kinship in their struggles. Perhaps they were both grappling with their perceptions of legacy and worth. As their shared vulnerability hung between them, like an unsaid promise, Mary felt the real challenge emerge. Could she truly dissolve the walls around her mother's legacy without losing her identity in the process? "Let's create something beautiful," she urged, her voice a whisper, yet powerful. "Let's redefine what legacy means for us. Let's not just honor the past, but actively participate in shaping the future." Her mother's eyes bore into hers, searching for sincerity, fighting through years of expectation and obligation. Mary held her breath. She needed to believe in this new vision for the future, not just for herself, but for her mother. Suddenly, amid the quiet anticipation, the door creaked open wider, as if their collective resolve found a voice of its own. Mary felt adrenaline surge through her as uncertainty transformed into determination. "If we walk this path together," Mary said, her heart racing, "we might just forge something neither of us can imagine right now." The moment hung heavy, thick with unspoken potential, and before they could chart their course, a sudden and unexpected voice interjected. The family matriarch, who had remained a silent observer until now. "What do you think you'll gain if this collaboration fails?" Mary's stomach dropped, the question pulling the tight rope of emotional intensity taut once more. This was not only about her and her mother. The repercussions loomed larger than she had anticipated. Could they move beyond the fear of failure together and redefine their identities through the shadow of past expectations? As she gauged the intensity of her mother's reaction, Mary knew that the time had come to confront not just her own insecurities, but the entanglements of familial legacy that could either break them or bind them anew. Mary's mind throbbed with the matriarch's question, an unwelcome reminder that beneath her mother's guarded face lay an ocean of uncertainty. The air thickened, laden with unfulfilled expectations and fears of inadequacy. She could feel the gravitational pull of her family's judgment pressing down on her, each gaze seemingly questioning her worth. Would any collaboration truly resonate if the foundation was riddled with doubt? She sensed Jake shifting behind her, the weight of his presence amplifying her determination. He believed in her, and that mattered now more than ever. Swallowing hard, she refocused on her mother, who now wore an expression that mingled curiosity with apprehension. "Mom, I understand the risk involved, but isn't growth often found on the edge of failure?" Her mother's response, a fleeting glance downwards, pierced through Mary's resolve. The silent scrutiny continued, each moment stretched into an eternity. What if they carried their fears into this venture, allowing their histories to overshadow any creative spark? Mary was more than an artist. She was a vessel of new ideas, eager to carve a space that honored both her past and her ambition. "Every time I shaped my work, I felt torn between tradition and innovation," Mary continued, driven by a sudden clarity. "I'm ready to embrace that tension, and I want us to tackle it together. Let's create a conversation in our art where both of our voices are imbued." A cautious nod from her mother didn't eliminate the shadow of skepticism that loomed nearby. The unspoken challenge swirled around them. Would they acknowledge their shared fears or allow them to create a chasm? "Your work deserves to stand as it is, Mom," Mary pressed, conviction spilling from her words. "But what if there's beauty in collaboration? What if it breathes life into your legacy instead of dimming it?" The calm that followed felt surreal, an oasis amid the emotional storm. Mary's mind buzzed with thoughts of how they could mesh their styles, her vibrant color palette mingling with her mother's intricate designs. She could envision the audience experiencing something thrilling, a union of voices that celebrated differences instead of burying them. Still, the nagging voice of doubt remained, wrapped around her heart like a vice. Could they truly change before the relentless march of time swallowed their opportunity? She swallowed hard, recognizing the leap she needed to take was far more significant than a simple creative conversation. "Mom, let's commit to this. Together," Mary proposed, her voice barely above a whisper. "We have the chance to reshape our narratives. Can we take that first step?" Finally, her mother met her eyes, the silence transforming into introspection rather than rejection. A flicker of recognition sparked, a realization that perhaps they were no longer simply mother and daughter tethered to their past, but two independent souls willing to redefine their future. "Let's carve out a plan," her mother replied, the weight of resignation lifting for the first time. "But it starts with us understanding each other's stories deeply." That simple acknowledgement felt like an explosion of light piercing the fog of their long-held grievances. But with each flicker of hope came the knot of apprehensive anticipation tangled in Mary's gut. A plan meant they would expose vulnerabilities, but they also faced setbacks. In that sudden clarity, however, another realization dawned upon Mary. She couldn't ignore the ground beneath her that was shifting, altering the foundation of the familial dynamics she had long accepted. There were voices still lingering, voices from those who had always measured her worth against rigid standards. What if they did fail? A shudder washed over her, igniting a resolve that contradicted her earlier fears. Mary needed to confront not just her mother's legacy, but also her own insecurities regarding judgment. As the next steps formulated in her mind, an unsettling reminder echoed in her thoughts. Real change meant pulling aside the curtains of fear and facing the disapproval that could very well rain down on them from both inside and outside the family. The dawning clarity hit her. This journey was just about taking risks. It was also about asserting her right to pursue her artistic freedom. But as she contemplated the new landscape of her relationships, could she maintain this newfound unity in the face of intense scrutiny? Would they be strong enough to withstand the storm of familial expectations? The tension surged within her, and with it, the promise of discovery hung starkly in the air like an unfinished masterpiece just waiting to be unveiled. Would they embrace this shared journey into the unknown, or would the weight of past obligations crush their aspirations before they even began? Mary felt an electric charge in the air, teasing what might unfold as new questions emerged, racing toward an intriguing crossroads ahead. What would that defining moment reveal about their resilience and commitment to redefining each other's legacies? Mary felt a surge of determination pulsing through her as she sat across from her mother in the sunlit studio, the air thick with the scent of paint and possibility. An unspoken bond had started to weave itself between them, one that carried both hope and trepidation. Her mother's acknowledgement of wanting to understand Mary's perspective lingered in the air, vibrating with the weight of a new beginning. "Okay, let's start by sharing our stories," Mary suggested, crossing her arms against an undercurrent of apprehension. "I want to know what's behind your art. What moments shaped your perspective?" Her mother looked hesitant, her eyes drifting toward the far wall adorned with their past works, each piece a testament to decisions made in isolation, layers built upon years of unyielding tradition. For a moment, silence crept in, heavy as a canvas awaiting paint. Mary's thoughts raced, recalling how the reluctance to share had often been suffocating. They were not alone in their struggles. The distinctions between their experiences lay across the same canvas in different hues. "I suppose I've always feared that showing my vulnerabilities could weaken my art," her mother finally admitted, her voice soft but steady. "I felt the pressure to be perfect, to maintain our family's legacy." A deepening realization struck Mary. Her mother's artistry was less about control and perfection than it was about wrestling with the fears that came with legacy. "Is it really worth holding on to that fear?" she challenged gently, recognizing her own reflections mirrored back at her. "What if we allow our weaknesses to inform our strengths?" Mary continued, swallowing her own tidal wave of fear surrounding their shared journey. "If we invite our truths into our work, perhaps we can shift the conversation from what is expected to what could be." At that moment, a radical idea crystallized in her mind. This wouldn't merely be about merging their styles. It could be a revelation of shared stories, insecurities stripped bare, inviting a raw authenticity into their art. Her mother met her gaze with a spark of insight. "You mean to let the audience see our imperfections, our journeys?" "Yes, that's where the beauty lies," Mary encouraged, infused with newfound inspiration. "Let's create pieces that tell our stories. We can each contribute elements that reflect our individual experiences through challenges, failures, and triumphs." The more Mary spoke, the more the weight of her mother's fatigued facade seemed to lift, unveiling a blank canvas ripe for growth. Together, they could dissolve the stagnant expectations that clouded their work and replace it with vital storytelling. As they started sketching ideas, an electrifying thought crossed Mary's mind. This was not just a collaboration. It was a rebellion against the very notion of what art should be. She had already begun to reshape her identity. This act of uniting with her mother propelled her further into her own autonomy. Yet just as excitement surged within her, an unwelcome sting of doubt came creeping back. How would family members react to this departure from tradition? Would they face backlash, or worse, become the subject of ridicule? The questions clawed at her, but she pushed them to the back of her mind. This was bigger than her worries. It was an opportunity to establish courage in their lineage. "Mom, what's our first step?" Mary asked, her gaze unwavering on her mother. A momentary silence enveloped them, transformative yet heavy with the magnitude of commitment ahead. Her mother's smile, trembling yet genuine, ignited a spark of hope in Mary. "We need to start with deep conversations. Let's explore our stories thoroughly. Only then can we create our art as an homage to our journey." As they began to sketch out their ideas, the environment around them shifted, painted with warmth and possibility. The profound emotional charge brimming in the air resonated against the uncertainty that still lingered. This was only the first stroke on a larger canvas, and Mary could feel the reverberations of something monumental about to unfold. But as the dawn of creativity burst forth, a new question loomed large. Could they truly convey their authentic selves, given the weight of external expectations? The challenge of confronting their family's judgments and redefining what success looked like grew weighty in Mary's heart. Their stories awaited release, and as they started to unravel layers of authenticity, she wondered, would her mother trust her enough to fully embrace the change on the horizon? Or would their fears once again threaten to stifle the budding transformation? With a mixture of hope and trepidation churning within her, Mary steeled herself for the journey ahead. The unfolding dialogue was just beginning, a catalyst for personal growth and connection with her mother. How profound could their narratives be, intertwined with the threads of their legacies? The next step awaited, fraught with challenges yet inscribed with promise. As the first strokes of their collaborative journey unfurled across the canvas, Mary and her mother found themselves in a back-and-forth embrace of stories, an exchange that began to breathe life into the walls that had once seemed insurmountable. Each session blossomed with revelations drawn from the depths of their shared history, yet distinctly separate paths. Weeks rolled into months, and with each gathering, the layers of complexity embedded in their lives emerged, allowing them to create visceral art that reflected not mere nostalgia, but profound understanding. Mary's vibrant colors began to dance alongside her mother's intricate details, forming breathtaking pieces that resonated with honesty and vulnerability. One evening, seated amid sketches and paint splatters, Mary turned to her mother. "You know, every piece we create brings us closer, because we're no longer just telling our stories. We're building trust." The realization washed over her, igniting a newfound resolve, a reconnection long overdue. "Yes," her mother replied, a glimmer of moisture in her eyes. "I've learned that it's in sharing our imperfections that we find our strength. It's liberating." Mary smiled, overwhelmed with the depth of their growth. What had once been a day of chaos now unfolded into a tapestry of healing, a journey forged with grit and grace, dismantling the structures that had held them captive for so long. Each piece they created dazzled with complexity and authenticity, drawing from the nuances of their intertwined legacies. But beneath the thrill of artistic exploration lingered the specter of familial expectations, an ever-present reminder that their traditional legacy hung like a tightrope above them. How would family and friends respond to this vibrant, unorthodox meld? Would they recognize its beauty, or dismiss it as an affront to years of established precedent? The moment of reckoning awaited. Mary decided it was time to present their work during a family gathering, an opportunity to unveil not just their art, but the fruits of their rebuilt relationship. The anxiety thrummed within her like an echo of past fears, but she felt fortified now, transformed. As her relatives filled their suburban home once again, Mary stood in the kitchen, heart thumping rhythmically, drawing strength from the vibrant pieces displayed in the adjoining room. She wanted her family to see what had blossomed from her and her mother's union of artistry, an evolution that felt as much personal as it was collective. "Everyone!" she called, capturing their attention with a mingling of nerves and excitement. "We've created something special. We want to share our journey. These pieces carry not just our stories, but the essence of resilience, evolution, and connection." She could see the intrigue spark within her relatives' eyes as they wandered into the gallery space, where the artwork stood proudly, bathed in soft light. Within the vibrant hues and intricate patterns, her family could witness narratives that spoke of struggles and triumphs mirrored across generations. Gasps erupted from the crowd, amazement weaving through the air as they approached each piece with reverence. "You both captured so much depth," exclaimed one cousin. The atmosphere shifted, murmurs of admiration threading through the space. In that moment, Mary felt confidence swell within her. This was their achievement. Their art was not a rebellion. It was a synthesis of love and legacy, an embrace of their authentic selves. She turned to her mother, who beamed with pride, their journey solidifying into something greater than either of them. As the night unfolded, family members began discussing their interpretations of the art, the very conversations Mary had longed to ignite. Her heart brimmed with gratitude as recognition enveloped her in newfound warmth, an acknowledgement of both their independence and interconnectedness. "Mary, this is incredible," Jake whispered, standing beside her. "I'm so proud of the courage both of you have shown. You've shaped a new narrative, together." With every engaging dialogue, she felt empowered, realized her worth beyond the confines of family expectations. They had now become catalysts for one another's growth, an affirmation that the transformation was indeed worth it. As the evening drew to a close, Mary glanced at her mother, and with a knowing smile, felt their connection illuminated. They had traversed the tumultuous path of redefining legacy, and in doing so, had reclaimed their identities, not as mere shadows of the past, but as vibrant artists charting an uncharted course together. With a heart full of joy and pride, Mary embraced her mother tightly, the fears of acceptance dissipating in the warmth of their renewed bond, a testament to not only the art they had created, but the profound growth they had achieved. This journey was but a beginning, and they fully embraced the opportunity to continue forging their own paths, an unwavering commitment to evolving as artists and as family. In that moment of fulfillment, Mary recognized a profound truth. By bridging the vast expanse between her past and future, she had not only transformed her relationship with her mother, but had also emerged as the artist she was destined to become. The legacy they sculpted together was not merely a burden of tradition. It was an evolving tale, one that would continue to inspire generations to come. As the echoes of laughter and affirmation filled the air, Mary felt the call to action resonate, not just within her journey, but intended for all who grappled with their identity against expectations. It was the moment calling for transformation, for embracing art as a medium of authenticity. For those seeking a paradigm shift in their narrative, you need to subscribe now to the channel that has been documenting these incredible stories of personal growth. Don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see how change is possible through courage and connection. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and make these transformative stories reach even more hearts. Comment below and share your reactions, your theories about the potential transformative journeys unfolding around you. The time for personal evolution is now. Let's embark on this journey together.